Hi, everyone. Welcome. Today, we are so blessed to have Brody Welte with us. He is the founder of PaddleFit, and he's also the former race coach for a gold medal winning U.S. team at ISA SUP and the Paddleboard World Championships. So, Brody, welcome. We're so excited to have you.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this. This should be fun.
Oh, it's fun talking to you, Brody. So first, let's start out. I'd like to have you tell the viewers just a little bit about yourself, your background.
How far back do you want me to go? That's a loaded question. We'll stick to the paddleboard world. So,
Yeah.
I worked for a company in Hawaii. I was essentially an island guide for a construction development company, and that's where I learned stand-up paddling. It was part of my job to take clients out paddling amongst other sports, hiking, mountain biking, all sorts of fun stuff. So that's really where I fell in love with stand-up paddling. Before that, I was um, kind of a personal trainer, recreation director for a country club, a little bit more traditional fitness world, tennis, swimming, all that fun stuff. And I had my personal training clients. So really, when I got into paddling, and I'd been into surfing because I'd lived in California since 2000 or 2001. So I'd always been around the surf industry, around surfing. I love surfing. Then when I found stand-up paddling, I kind of saw those two paths collide from a fitness standpoint and from a recreation standpoint. Because most of the time, people, they feel like, oh, I've got to be trapped in a fitness center, I've got to be trapped in a gym. And then a lot of times adventure people are like, well, how do I get better at my sport? How do I get better at my craft? And so I just really merged the two. And that's when I formed PaddleFit. I actually got laid off with the downturn in '08. And then, like any smart entrepreneur, I start a business in the worst possible economic climate ever. Um, but I did two things right. One, I surrounded myself with good people, and the timing. I mean, obviously, I couldn't control the timing, but stand-up paddling was just hitting the mainstream, right at the very bottom of the bell curve. So I just was very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time. So that's where PaddleFit started. I ended up moving to Florida, which that's a whole nother story. But PaddleFit was birthed in Florida. I was in the Tampa, St. Pete area. And then from there, I've kind of traveled, went back to California, and now I'm in North Carolina. And in that whole time, I've had an operation in Southern California that was for the local population there, at the same time growing PaddleFit on the national and international stage. And then, started getting into the human performance side of it, got into racing. Personally, I got into racing, but I was a little bit too old to really compete with the youngsters. And then I just got into the coaching aspect from the racing standpoint. And that's when, you mentioned in the intro that, we won the gold medal in 2015. I was a race coach then, and then became the head coach the year after that. So that was a lot of fun. Stand-up paddling has taken me on some pretty crazy journeys, all over the world, working with athletes, working with people that, just introducing them to the sport. So that's really the 2-minute background of where I'm at and how I got into stand-up paddling.
That's awesome. And I love that it's such a fun journey, just how you kind of stumbled upon it essentially.
I did.
Just through touring business and tourism. So that's really fun. And I mean, it seems to be really a draw still for tourism, like,
Oh yeah.
in this area too, for sure.
Yeah. Inland lakes and rivers are where the growth will continue to be. I mean, most of the coasts have been saturated, at least in the States, for a few years now. Most of the growth that I see is from inland lakes, inland rivers, places that you don't normally think of when you think of water sports or paddling sports or surf sports.
Yeah, for sure. I when I was posting some things on my Facebook, both my business page and my personal page, and just sharing that, like, some people that I grew up with, I grew up in Illinois, and some people laughed at me. They
Right.
thought like they weren't trying to be mean, but they were like, there's no surf there. And I'm like, well,
Right.
first of all, you're wrong. There is actually surf on Lake Michigan.
There is. I've
I'm
seen
like,
pictures.
but second of all, I'm like, no, you don't need waves for stand-up paddling. You've got your paddle.
Right.
You go on flat water. So it was fun to educate people, let them know a little bit that you don't need all that.
Yeah, and that's, kind of how I got into the certification game is, really there was that huge gap where people had no idea what. I mean, I remember the first time I saw it, I was still living in California and I was surfing and I saw someone out in the water on this. I'm like, what is that? And it didn't register. And then when I transferred to when I moved to Hawaii, then it was part of my, the first. So this is a funny story. So my first week on the job, I had really no idea what the job entailed. It was a new company. I knew I was going to be adventure guiding on different levels. I had no idea to include stand-up paddling because I'd never really seen it other than that one time right before I moved from California. But my first week on the job was this huge marketing event to sell homes and all that other stuff. And the people that I was helping coordinate were Dave Kalama and Laird Hamilton. That was my first experience. So they did this beach day as part of this event, and I was just that my team was the team that helped kind of facilitate it. So that was my first intro to stand-up paddling was with those guys. I'm like, okay, maybe there's a little divine intervention there where
I guess.
the two guys that are most considered the founders of modern stand-up paddling are those two guys. So I just pretty fortunate. And then I became pretty good friends with Kalama. Dave's a really down-to-earth guy. I still talk to him on a monthly basis, just really good guy. He's done more for the sport than I think anybody, put together, with his coaching clinics and his camps. And, obviously he's into surfing and racing and all that other stuff. But, just to be a part of, what he was doing for a little bit was awesome. I was very thankful to be a part of what he was doing.
That's so cool. Yeah. And for the viewers who do not know who Dave Kalama are and Laird Hamilton, just can you give a brief
Yeah.
explanation of
So
that?
yeah, I mean that's you're right because those guys come from the surf community. So there's a couple different versions of how they reintroduced it. Laird was kind of the spearhead early on, but Laird and Dave were both known for big wave surfing. Actually, Dave was known for windsurfing. He was a windsurf champion. His dad was a surf champion back in the day. So he's half Hawaiian, so he's got that in his blood. And then Laird grew up in Hawaii. Dave didn't actually move there until he was a young adult. I believe he was 21 or 22. And those guys are really the founding fathers of toe surfing. So you see the big wave surfing, those guys are really kind of in the forefront of that. And then they use stand-up paddling kind of as cross training when the waves weren't big. So yeah, they were definitely kind of on the forefront of all the water sports, and they just happened to be the ones that kind of reintroduced stand-up paddling to the world because it had been there in the past, but really they kind of modernized it and brought it to the forefront.
Thanks, Brody, for that. It's so fun that was one of your first experiences.
Yeah, it
Amazing.
was.
Yeah, talk about
And then I
divine.
met like Gabby Reese was there, which is Laird's
Oh my
wife, and then
God.
there's a guy named Titus Kinimaka, who Titus is full-blooded Hawaiian. That guy is like an amazing waterman. There was all these people there that I had kind of looked up to, and it was pretty surreal that first week of my job. I was kind of, I had been to the islands before, but to move there, to live there, it was a pretty shocking couple weeks. But it started off on the right foot.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. Well, and funny side note is one of my Pilates clients when I lived in Chicago, her and her husband are good friends with Laird Hamilton. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Laird's a
And that
good
was
guy. They're
kind of
all
before I was in that world and was like, oh, that's
yeah,
cool. He's a pro surfer. Neat,
yeah. They're all great guys. Like Laird's a really good guy. He's a little bit more high profile. He's done a little bit things. He's been in some Hollywood movies. Dave has too, but Dave is a little bit more low key. But both of those guys are great guys, and they've done a tremendous amount for water sports in general.
Yes, that's fantastic. So back to paddle fit. What's paddle fit, Brody?
Yeah, so PaddleFit is kind of, going back to my story of my background, PaddleFit is really a merging of paddling and fitness. So I just created a coaching program and an outdoor fitness program called PaddleFit. So, a lot of times in the past, up until now, I really don't have anything local that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis from a paddling standpoint. I mainly focus on PaddleFit and some other things. But up until I moved to North Carolina, I had a facility. So PaddleFit was my day-to-day training with my clients. We're doing fitness classes, doing technique classes, doing group training, doing race prep, general fitness stuff, beach fitness stuff. So PaddleFit is really just a culmination of the paddling world and the fitness world, and really just trying to, you know, help people get better at paddling through outdoor fitness.
Yes. Yes. And so I went through your paddle fit core and pro
Yeah.
certification, and it was so
Yep.
much fun. And I took one of your workshops as well. And what and there are other certifying bodies out there, of course, that are great. So what differentiates paddle fit from some of those other certifying bodies?
Yeah. Well, let me start with what's similar first, because a lot of times people are like, well, do you do this, do this? So, a lot of the other entities out there and PaddleFit, really the intro level stuff is about safety and fitness, or I'm sorry, safety and in protecting yourself from the elements and learning the elements. So really that's our foundational element. I mean, we teach a lot of the same stuff that the other bodies teach. And that's something when you have a name like PaddleFit, people are like, well, do I need to take those courses first and then take yours? I'm like, we're covering from a safety standpoint, we're covering almost the same things. Now, what differentiates us is once you start getting into the teaching how to paddle component. I mean, everything that we do is proprietary. We're teaching people how to paddle. So for me, I think that's a huge selling point that, okay, if the whole idea of a certification education program is to teach people how to paddle, wouldn't you want to have the best information? And I still believe that we have the best information because we have input from guys like Dave Kalama. We have input from other people who were founders of the sport and really created our paddling portion to be completely unique. Definitely proprietary. So that's what definitely separates us. And then obviously going into the fitness realm, there's not a lot of people doing that as well. So knowing that you could have a modality like stand-up paddling where you can stay fit, stay healthy, and not really be in a gym setting is phenomenal. So that's the other thing that separates us. But definitely the technique and the simple fact of focusing on fitness, and we're focusing on in a fundamental human performance way. That's kind of my background. When I was in doing personal training, I was working with athletes. I've worked with some X game athletes and things like that. So human performance has always been really intriguing to me. Um, and really what's even more intriguing is taking that human performance aspect and applying it to your quote unquote average everyday people, which can benefit from it the most. So that's really the in a nutshell what separates PaddleFit from, as far as education, from the rest of them.
Yeah, I really appreciate how you have really taken it, and I think you do such a good job of taking kind of a program, but just like anything, it's got its you've got your system, but I feel like you are so good at taking it for each individual and what their abilities are and capabilities, and progressing people at where they're at.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And that was my mindset. And sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
Mhm.
Because I really wasn't planning on the way it turned out. It just happened as we refined it. I look at it as like building a house. We're the infrastructure for the house, but our coaches and even our clients are the one that's putting the siding, they're painting the colors, they're doing all the interior work to make it look like how they want it to look like. But we're the skeleton, we're the foundation, we're the fundamentals to really facilitate that. I mean, we've got coaches that come through our program that teach SUP yoga. We have coaches that come through our program that are working with high level athletes. We have coaches in our program that just have a rental in lesson facility, anywhere in the world pretty much. So it's really great that we're able to adapt the program to all those individual people, and we have something to offer all of those. And as you go through, have you gone through pro yet? I
Yep.
can't remember.
Yep.
So
Canada.
yeah, that's right. That's right. You came to Canada.
Chile.
Yeah, that's right. It was Chile. I totally remember that. In pro, we can kind of adapt it even more. Pro is a little bit more about personal growth. And a lot of times when you're a leader, and we really want our coaches to be leaders, people are going to follow what they're into and what they're doing. So part of pro is making people a better version, or at least helping them refine the version of themselves that they can put forth in an authentic way. And that allows people to build real communities. I mean, when you're doing things and being authentic and being the best version of yourself, it lends you to be a better coach, it lends you to be a better leader, and it lends for you to really build an authentic community. And there's, like, you're one of them. I can name probably 25 people off the top of my head who are doing that just really give PaddleFit a good name based on what they are doing, not necessarily what we are doing.
Yeah, I've really appreciated the community, and that was actually one of the things I had planned to talk about. So you segued
Okay.
into that well. I've really enjoyed being a member of PaddleFit because of the camaraderie and support that you have facilitated. I think has been just phenomenal. And I don't know, I just find the stand-up paddleboarding community in general to kind of be just a very supportive environment, period. But I think you've done an outstanding job of facilitating that. And so yeah, tell me a little bit about your vision kind of behind that as well.
Yeah. So really, I from day one, I always wanted to be, if we're talking like the certification education standpoint, I always wanted that to be the entry point, never the end point. And I think that's where a lot of, not necessarily in the stand-up paddle world, but in general, people get, you know, their teammates or their, clients or whatever through the gate, and then they don't really do anything with them. I wanted to make sure that our coaches felt supported. And we've had people come in and out, and we've had people have, leave careers to come into stand-up paddling. We've had people leave stand-up paddling to go get different directions. But at the end of the day, if we can create an environment that helps people become better versions of themselves, whether that's in the stand-up paddle world or not, I think we've done our job. And really, things like the closed Facebook page, try to stay connected as much as possible. People are able to ask questions to other coaches that are maybe, I certainly don't have all the answers. In fact, most of what you see in our program is stuff that I've done wrong in the past. And like, okay, that's not how you do it. Let's do it this way. So there's a lot of people in our community that have that same mindset, that like they've done things not necessarily the right way. They've learned from it, and then they can share with new coaches coming into our program. So I've always wanted it to be open armed. I've never wanted it to be exclusive. I always wanted to be inclusive, because at the end of the day, when everybody's better and all our coaches are pulling in the same direction, it's going to make PaddleFit better. And really, that's what we're relying on, is just our coaches being unofficial or official ambassadors, however you want to look at it, for PaddleFit. And I think from my standpoint, that was a goal from day one. Like, try to make people the best versions of themselves, try to help them out, whether it's paddling or not. I mean, I've had more life conversations than I probably have had paddle conversations with people, even when I was coaching some of the athletes. I mean, when you get to, especially in the paddle world, when you get to that top level of coaching, you're not really helping these people out physically, because they pretty much have, if they're at that level, they're physically at the top of their game. You're trying to give them a 1 or 2% increase on the mental side. So for me, that, the mental side of things has really helped me, not only with those athletes, but with building community. So if a coach has a life problem, and obviously over the last year and a half, we've had, with COVID and everything, we've had a lot of things that we've had to deal with. I've had more conversations about life stuff than I had about paddling. And to me, that's what it's about. I wanted paddling to facilitate, to help people to make their lives better.
Yeah, that's I love that. And I think well, two things. I had I had an interview with Brent the other day, and it
Okay.
was fun to find out how you guys met. I didn't realize that you guys just, like you're saying, just talked. You didn't even end up paddling that day or something. You
No,
just ended up
we met in a
going to,
Starbucks because it was
yeah,
terrible weather. And
yeah,
Brent, it was, yeah. He's like, I want to do this. Because I think he was a financial planner at the time.
yeah.
And we met at a random Starbucks in St. Pete. And just kind of hit it off. He came in my shop, and yeah, the weather was pretty bad that week when he was down here. So yeah, it was, it's guys like Brent too that have really helped PaddleFit. He still teaches. We haven't really done much because of COVID, but he still teaches certifications for us. So yeah, Brent's been an integral part of growing PaddleFit, especially in Canada.
Yeah,
But I'm hoping that we can get through this year and get things back up and running, because Canada's still a little bit in lockdown
still
mode.
closed. Yeah,
Yeah, they're still closed, but Brent's a
in
great guy.
Ontario.
I'm very appreciative of Brent. He's a great dude.
Yeah, that was just so fun to hear that. And I think, like, and then segueing into what you were just saying too about the community and about, and then with reference to COVID, like, I feel like and getting into people's kind of life stories, because right,
Yeah,
we all have life stories, and but
right.
especially in this last year, it's just been a unique situation for everyone. Some people super positive experience with it, and some people not so positive, and all in between. But I feel like um stand up paddling has kept going because a lot of people still had access to the water. And I feel like I don't know, like, I think offering this now, especially at this time, like, it's been a healing modality, don't you think? Like,
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, yeah, you're right. It's the last year and a half has been tough for so many people. When do you start talking about some of the positives? When, there's no handbook how to handle the last year and a half.
no.
So I have a tendency to adapt and look at the positive side. It's just kind of who I am. Which, last year kind of got me in trouble in a few times, because people had some serious issues. I mean, I know of a couple people that lost family members. I mean, my neighbor lost a sister. So, not everybody was ready for that mindset, even though that was my personal mindset and always has been, whether it's through personal tragedy or things like last year. So yeah, I mean, I looked at it as people had a profound appreciation for being outdoors. I've talked to so many people that have had zero connection with outdoors, and all of a sudden when they're trapped in their house, they're like, I want to go outdoors. I have an appreciation for being outdoors. So to me, that's a huge thing that came about last year. And I think also being trapped with family, it's like, okay, do I really like these people? Do I not like these people? I'm sure it probably led to some divorces, but I think the people that I know really started appreciating family, really started appreciating friends, especially, like Brent. I haven't seen Brent in it, man, we might be going on 2 years now, and I would see him on a pretty frequent basis. So, you start to appreciate those things a little bit more because a lot of stuff was taken away. So I think that, you know, there are a lot of positives that can be taken out of it when people are ready to be in that mindset. And I'm even seeing it in a lot of our certifications, because we really shut down last year. We didn't do anything. I did one certification last year, and it was very awkward and weird because it was right after, I believe it was in the end of May. So people were still kind of dealing with the initial shock. We kind of had a little bit of a lull. So, I'm starting to see it this year where people are really coming out and like, I want to change my life. I mean, I had an attorney in my last class. She's like, I'm done with being an attorney. I want to go be outdoors. So I think there are positives. It just, you got to be ready for that mindset. And not everybody's, I still don't think everybody's ready for that mindset.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think if you look back on some of the tragedies or some of the difficulties you have in your life, it tends to produce a better version of you, because you kind of let the stuff that doesn't matter go away. I mean, at least that's how I look back in my life. Some of the worst things that have happened to me, I'm very thankful for, because it sent me in a path, like getting laid off, living on Hawaii, that could have devastated some people. But for me, I'm like, okay, what's the next opportunity And I think that COVID presents that for a lot of people, like, okay, what's really important in my life? What's not important? Let's focus on the stuff that's important. And to me, that's kind of the big take home message from dealing with the last year and a half.
Yeah, that's I think that's an excellent point. And um yeah, and you're right. I think people have to be ready
Yeah.
for that mindset. But I think I don't know. I think the most people that I've encountered, I think it's been like a slow progression, right? Or but a
Yeah.
progression nevertheless of just, kind of coming and feeling comfortable and coming out of
Right.
that,
Yeah,
I
no,
don't,
I agree. I mean, my
yeah,
my reaction is always whenever I'm uncomfortable, I always make jokes. And I got in trouble
so
a
good.
lot about March through May last year because I mean, none of us knew what this thing was.
Yeah.
And, I always try to make light of things, and sometimes it's not good to make light of things. So, yeah, you're right. That's one lesson I've learned. Let people, not everybody's ready for jokes when you're going through a pandemic. So, that's just once again, that's my coping mechanism is laughter and joking around, but sometimes
Yeah, I
it's like,
relate to that. I told a really bad joke to my family at my grandmother's funeral.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Not everybody
That's the
does.
same thing. My dad passed away right before, and so it kind of led up. My dad passed away right before the pandemic of cancer, and it was the same thing. Like, we're at his funeral. I've got 3 older brothers. Like, people think that we're sociopaths because we're all joking. It's like, we just lost our dad, and then the pandemic happened. So I was definitely in a weird space of coping with things, and yeah, it was probably good that I went off social media for about 6 months. I'm like, okay, I just need to stay away from things because people don't like my jokes. People don't like my coping mechanisms. But I think that if you can get to that place, if you can get to that place where you can cope and you have whatever your coping mechanisms are, that it definitely helps you grow and move past it. So, to each their own,
Yes.
I guess. But no more jokes during
For
pandemic.
sure, for sure. And I think, yeah, I think a lot of us have taken little or larger breaks from social media here
Yeah,
and there as needed. And I think that's healthy for sure too.
yeah.
It's all a balance to everything. Okay, so if somebody, well, here's a question. Yeah, I'll ask this first. So why would someone want to hire or to connect with a paddle fit coach?
Yeah, that's the ultimate question. Why? And I get this question all the time. Like, you're just holding a paddle and a board. What can be hard about it? And
Yeah.
I think that there's some truth to that. I mean, obviously there is truth to that. That's the great thing about stand-up paddling is you just have a board and a paddle. It's pretty accessible. But I look at, for me personally, I look at all the stuff that I wanted to get good at. Golf. I worked for a country club and I lived with the director of golf, so I took lessons with him. I'm like, holy cow! Even within one lesson, it totally changed how I played golf. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, that's a good lesson. And then as you start helping people through things like fitness and eating and those types of things, which are, movement and eating are two things that we do naturally. Like, what do you
Oh
need
my
a coach?
gosh. Hold on, Brody. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Got a phone call?
My daughter's friend. Okay. Wow, that was weird. Okay, I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. So, so where should I pick it back up?
It probably recorded everything you said along with the phone call, but okay, so you were talking
All right.
about
So
how you were talking about nutrition and
yeah,
coaching and fitness and
yeah. So really, there's people out there that are teaching people how to eat, and this is stuff that we do naturally. Otherwise, we'll die. But I think that when you have something like stand-up paddling, and in a handful of lessons, you can go from zero to hero quickly. I just think it's a no-brainer to take a lesson from someone who has been trained like a PaddleFit coach, because you look at golf, you look at, what's another good, like tennis is another one where, yeah, tennis isn't that complicated, but if you go and take tennis lessons, the first couple lessons, your growth and your learning potential is gonna skyrocket. And that's the same thing with stand-up paddling, like how to hold the paddle, where to hold the paddle, how deep do you get the paddle, where do you stand, just there's a lot of little things that if you take a lesson from someone that knows how to coach, it'll completely put you in a way better situation than you just going out and learning. And I've seen the opposite where people rent boards. I mean, I used to go sit, this is when I lived in Florida. There was a rental. Whenever I needed a laugh, I would go sit in front of this rental because the guy didn't really know what he was doing renting, and all these tourists would go out and rent these boards. And it was part of the reason why it kind of spurred me on to create educational stuff is these people, and none of them got hurt, so I could laugh a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's just amazing how people could mess up a paddle and a board, because it is simple, but it's amazing how people could mess it up. I mean, I remember watching this guy. He was paddling. He was like completely opposite. He would switch hand. He knew how to switch hands, but he was paddling opposite. And it's
Yeah.
something as simple as that.
Yeah.
That if you have a coach, they can take you through all those 25 fundamentals of stand-up paddling in a couple lessons and get you on the right track. So to me, it's a no-brainer. Like spend the money. You're gonna learn about water safety. You're gonna learn about being safe on the board, and you're gonna have a way better experience. And then you'll be able to go in whatever direction you want to go with the sport.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah. Well, and I also think too, like, depending on the bodies of water you're on, like you're saying, on an intercoastal, we have lots of inland lakes, but we also have access to the Bay and Lake Michigan, and the conditions of these waters, and you like access to the ocean as well. I mean, if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, local conditions are crazy. I mean, you know that I grew up in Michigan, so the
Yeah.
Great Lakes are no joke. I
No.
mean, there's so many,
Full of
graveyards
animals.
from boats and stuff because there's, Lake Superior is one of the craziest bodies of water on the planet. So you just don't know. And the same thing here. When I lived in Hawaii, it was one thing, big waves. There's a lot of conditions that are associated with big waves. California was water temperature and waves. Here it's more currents because you've got on the intercoastal, you've got water getting pulled out and pushed back in with the tides. So, you got boat traffic, and, Michigan, you can have heat, you can have cold, you can have, yeah, there's so many things conditionally wise that you would want to learn from someone that is from that area. And
Yeah.
you're right. That's a great point of not only the technical aspect, but just learning your environment.
Yeah.
People don't know, oh, I'm going to go rent a board, or I'm going to buy a board from Costco. I'm going to go out, and they don't think to look at like, oh, when I lived in Florida, between 3 and 5 every day, we had thunderstorms. I mean, every single day in the summer, and it would come in. And if you didn't know that, you would get caught off guard. So
Yeah.
taking a lesson from a knowledgeable local coach is critical. I mean, and people travel. We've got coaches all over the planet. You go to some place like the Caribbean, you're like, oh, it's calm, flat water for the most part. Well, things can change in a hurry. So even when you're on vacation, taking a lesson or even renting from someone that knows what's going on is always critical. It's going to put you in the right position for sure.
And people can find those through the PaddleFit site, right? They can.
Yeah, if they go, so our main site is paddlefitpro.com, and we do have a coaches directory on there. Those are all the up-to-date current coaches. Yeah, I mean, at one point, we've been doing this for, man, have we been doing this for 11 years now? Last year was our 10th year anniversary. So we've been doing, of course, COVID, we didn't get to really celebrate it much. So over the years, I think we're close to 4,000 coaches in 40 countries.
Wow.
So, we've definitely had, some people have come and gone just over the years, but yeah, we've got a pretty solid directory of people that are current pretty much all over the planet. Yeah, and so that's a good resource to find. And then obviously, just with acquaintances within the industry, I know a lot of the PaddleFit coaches, including myself, have connections to people that aren't in our system, and it's always good to reach out. That's the one thing I'm thankful for is a lot of our PaddleFit coaches are very knowledgeable about the industry stuff too. So they know, like, oh yeah, go paddle there. That's a great place to paddle. Oh, you're going on vacation. Yeah, there's a great place, where you're going. That's one thing that's really cool to see from the community is people are very knowledgeable about their area, and then the industry in general.
Yes, yes. Okay, so that is paddlefitpro.com.
Correct. That's our main site. And that's certifications. Now we put, before COVID, we had the PaddleFit games, we had some 2 to 3 hour clinics, we had a bunch of stuff that was clearly put on pause. And I didn't know how this year is going to go. So I just stuck to the certifications this year. We've sold out or filled almost all. And we have one this weekend up in New York that I'm traveling to. And then we kind of eased into it. I was going to add a couple more, but I didn't know what was going to happen. So we've got one more in Jupiter in November after hurricane season. I usually like to go down there. But we'll, right now I'm kind of planning for 2022. The PaddleFit games aren't going to come back in 2022, but that's something that we're thinking about. And it's a little bit too soon because there's still travel restrictions.
Yes.
And I want to go through another winter of what this thing's going to bring us, is COVID. Hopefully this is behind us, but there's too many unknowns right now.
Yeah.
But we, eventually we'll get back to normal, and we'll have games, we'll have the clinics, all sorts of fun stuff that we were planning on adding before the whole COVID issue.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the workshop that you had that I took in Canada.
We had a PaddleFit experience. Oh yeah, because you
PaddleFit
took
experience. That's what.
Yeah, you took it up in Canada. That's right. Yeah, because we started launching it then. I have probably 100 ideas that I have worked on over the years, just figuring out the right time to launch them. The PaddleFit experience was one of those because I saw other people do clinics. A lot of people focus heavy on technique. Some people focus on specific surfing or what have you, but there was no one really doing a general, how do I, we did an assessment during the PaddleFit experience.
That was so fun. It was.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that, I can't wait to get back. It'll be next year before we do those. And generally we'll do them before a certification. So if a certification is on a Saturday, we'll generally do those on a Friday, just because we're traveling to these areas. And yeah, it's a great, I love the format. I love the concept. We had great feedback when we did it in 2019.
My gosh. Good grief. Why are everybody's calling me? I never get phone calls, and then of course I'm doing something like this.
Oh yeah, no, phone calls are the best.
But yeah, that workshop was great. It was a lot of fun.
We'll bring it back. We'll bring it back next year for sure.
Yeah. And I'm going actually this weekend to Dana Point. I'm going to take a footwork clinic from Candace Appleby.
Oh, Candace. Yeah. Tell Candace I said hello.
Yeah. Yeah.
Candace is awesome. She was on that team that won the gold medal. I became good friends with her before and after that as well. She's a great human being. I really like Candace. She's a good role model. I'm not too sure what she's doing these days. I mean, no one knows what's going on with, there's not really a whole lot of events. The Carolina Cup is supposed to happen this year.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any restrictions right now in North Carolina, so I'm assuming it's going to go forward. But yeah, all those athletes, it's hard to see what's going on in their lives because they've just had to put everything on pause for the last year and a half. But Candace is one of the hardest workers, very positive attitude, great ambassador for the sport, a phenomenal ambassador for SUP racing and SUP surfing.
Yes, I'm really excited. I'm probably old enough to be your mom, but I want to be like when I grow up, right?
Exactly.
Well, Brody, if someone wanted to sign up for a certification, so you said that you are having one in Jupiter, Florida in November, right?
Yeah, I mean the two opportunities this year. I mean, we still have a couple spaces if anybody's in the Northeast.
Okay.
We're about an hour outside of New York City. It's in Green. Oh, I'm gonna mess this up. It's on a lake. What's the name of the lake?
Okay, so the one you're doing this weekend?
Yes, we still have a couple spots available. I mean, if people want to travel to it, or they're in the Northeast, it's about an hour outside of New York. It's right on the New Jersey-New York border. Okay. People are welcome to come to that. Like I said, we've got a handful. I think we have 3 spaces left. And then we've got plenty of spaces in the Jupiter one. And the Jupiter one's great because we do it in November. So if anybody's up north and wants to get out of the cold, it's a good time to go down. And the water's still warm in November. It's past hurricane season, so we don't have to really worry about that. And it's just a good time of year to take that course. It's, a lot of people, if they're already in the industry, their season is kind of winding down, or if they're new to the industry and want to get in, they've got a whole winter they take our class. They've got a whole winter to really formalize their plan for the next season. So I
Awesome.
really like that one. We usually sell that one out. So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, that
People
one
could
is
get
pretty
in as soon
popular.
as possible if they're interested.
Yeah, and
And
we have discounts if you sign up 60 days out, which we're still in that. See, July, August, September. Yeah, I mean, we've got another probably month and a half of people getting a discounted rate to sign up. And
okay.
then they can take, so we have so PaddleFit Core is, we used to be a 2-day course, and then we took the 1 day was a lecture format. We took that lecture format and put it online, so people can at their own pace take the online course to get ready for the practical in person. And it's only a 1 day now, so it's a way better flow. People can go at their own pace, and people seem to retain a little bit more information with the online course.
Yes, I like the updated version. I did it a long time. I think.
Yeah, you did it twice, right?
Yeah, I did the course. I did a refresher, and I think I did it first in 2016 when you had the 2-day in Chicago, and then in 2019 when you had it separated online.
Yeah,
I think that worked out really well.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. There's definitely, I mean, obviously being in a lecture format is helpful, but we have a couple breakout sessions during the live class where we can answer most of the questions, whether they're business questions or what have you. So I'm really happy with the formula. It seems to allow people, most people are computer savvy where they can take an online course, and then that information, they already have that in their brain when they come to the in-person course, and we can really focus on the skills during that online or during the live course.
Perfect. So if people want to sign up for those, they would go to the paddlefitpro.com site as well.
Yeah, and then there's a certification tab. You click on the certification tab and it'll force you to go to either core or pro. We don't have any pro the rest of the year. We'll most likely do a combo class early in 2022. Haven't really decided yet. We normally would do one in the birthplace of PaddleFit in St. Petersburg, Florida, and we'd do a core on a Friday, and we would do pro on a Saturday, Sunday. I don't know if I'm ready to do that yet. We might just push it off to what I did this year. I did one in my backyard here in Wrightsville Beach, and that was in mid-April, because that's the water temp isn't really ready. So I haven't decided that, but yeah, once you go on the website, you can go to the core section, and that'll show you the 2 that are left this year, the one this weekend and the one coming up in November in Jupiter. And then we'll have our full schedule. I try to have it out by October, and we'll have a full schedule for 2022 sometime in October.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing what the future holds with that for sure. And okay, I had a question on here and I don't even know.
These have been too easy. You got to ask me some difficult ones.
Well,
I know the answers. I know the answers to all these.
What do you like on your toast?
Peanut butter. I'm not an avocado toast type person. Growing up in Michigan, you don't really
toast. I like everything
avocado
bagel seasoning on it. It's pretty good.
Yeah. I like avocado and guacamole. That's about it.
My kids do too. That's their
favorite.
Okay, so are there any prerequisites to becoming a coach?
That's a loaded question, because the answer is yes. I like to have people have some experience so they're not brand new, but I'm telling you, the people that we've had the biggest issues with were the people that have been paddling that were quote unquote experienced, because they have horrible habits that, not picking on anybody.
It's easier to teach new habits than correct old.
Yeah, so I would much rather have someone have less experience. I mean, obviously you need to know how to stand on the board, you need to know how to move and maneuver the board, but honestly, we'll teach you everything during the class. And then if there's any deficiencies that you have, we'll give you time to practice those skills, which this happens all the time. Someone shows up to the class, they're not really ready for the class. They go through it. We have them work on XYZ. They work on it for 30 days. They correspond back with us saying, hey, here's a video of me doing, the crossbow turn. Like, okay, perfect. You nailed it. And then we issue the certification at that point. So for me, I would much rather have someone with less experience, and we can teach them the right way. And then we can have any follow-up. If there's anything they need to work on, we can manage that situation, as opposed to someone that's been paddling for 10 years, once again, we accept everybody,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't want lack of experience to scare people away. We will manage you through the process.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, definitely in at least in the certification weekends that I was involved in, I mean, there was people of all different
Yep.
levels and it was really fun. I mean, there were definitely people who could paddle me out of the water for
Right.
sure. And then, and people who were less experienced. And I don't know, I felt like in and of itself, that was a learning experience because we were kind of all helping each other.
Yeah.
And so I think even as a coach, I think it's helpful because you can kind of mentor and then learn from the people who are better than you,
Yeah.
Which,
Anybody that's ever taught, the best way to learn your material is to teach it. So, and
yeah,
that's where our certifications are set up, that you hit the nail on the head. That's the idea that, yeah, you're not just there to absorb knowledge, you're there to apply it, and you're going to apply it to your classmates. You guys, we do role playing, you're going to apply it to each other. So at the end of the day, I want you to leave the course having experience working with people and be like, oh yeah, I helped that person. And then the coach that you're coaching is like, oh, I learned a ton. Now I can go pass this information on. So that's the whole goal. Having varying levels is really beneficial for everybody. So yeah, I agree with you. It's a great, having varying levels is great.
well, Brody, I think that you and Brian, I think you guys are so phenomenal. Just in your mentoring, you have such that heart and that gift for mentoring and for pouring your knowledge so generously. I feel like you're always make yourself available, and I so appreciate that about you. And I think I want to, and I'm saying that because not just to flatter you, but to so that the people
We're still
out there,
talking about me, right?
right? Yeah. but to also, just to convey that, it really is a supportive community that you have really created and facilitated. And I see the name at the bottom. I don't know if this is showing, but he is not Jesse. He is Brody. That's his wife.
Yeah.
Right? That's your wife.
Oh yeah. Oh, I
See
think
the
I'm
name.
using my
Sorry, I
wife's
didn't even
Zoom.
notice that
I'm
until
using my
right
wife's
now.
Zoom account. So yeah, it does. You can call me Jesse if you want.
Yeah.
She's way better than I am.
But yeah, but I think you just make yourself so available and accessible to the coaches, and you're so generous with your time. And so that's one of the many things I appreciate about you. So thank you.
Well, thanks for saying that. I mean, I try my best to, I always try to put myself in other people's shoes, what information, what help, what I want, and I try to convey that. I mean, it's not always perfect. We've made a
Oh
ton of
my
mistakes along the
gosh,
way.
holy cow. What in the heck? People, leave
That's
me
right.
alone.
No, but yeah, I
I'm
appreciate
very
that.
popular, you can see.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. That's
I make
perfect.
myself available.
Yeah, see, yeah, Pete, you're available because everybody's calling you.
Apparently.
But yeah, it's just I try to put myself in people's shoes, and like I said, I don't always do things the right way, make a lot of mistakes. But at the end of the day, you try to own up to them. You just try to be as authentic as you can, and try to help as many people as you can. And generally things work out in a pretty positive way when you have that attitude. So yeah, but at the end of the day, PaddleFit is only as good as coaches like you, coaches like Brent. Really, those you guys are who PaddleFit is. It's not me. I remember making a goal right when I created PaddleFit. I'm like, hopefully people don't know who I am. If I do this right, people won't know who I am. They'll know who PaddleFit is. And still working on that, but hopefully people see PaddleFit and they see coaches like you. And if I become anonymous, that means I've done my job. So, but I'm very thankful for coaches like you guys, because you definitely carry the PaddleFit torch to places that I could never reach on my own.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, Brody. And I think, you know what? I am going to do a little investigative journalism
Okay,
question. Where are you
sweet.
from?
Where am I from? So this is going to be hilarious. You're from Michigan.
I
So
know the answer
Michigan,
to
do you know how
this,
many
by the way.
counties do you know how many counties Michigan has?
I don't. I'm still learning about Michigan. I've been here 10 years and I'm still
So
learning.
Michigan has 83 counties.
That's
Okay.
Okay.
There is one county out of the 83 that does not have a natural lake located in it. I am from that county.
That is so funny. I did
Yep.
not know that.
Michigan has 11,000 lakes. I grew up in Corona, Michigan, which is in Shiawassee County. It's in between Flint and Lansing. It is the only county in Michigan that does not have a natural lake.
That is
So how
really
funny is
funny.
that? So we do have the river. I grew up on a river though. There is the Shiawassee River that runs through Corona, but Corona is about, when I was there, it was about 3,000 people, tiny, polar opposite of what my life experience was. But it was a great place to grow up. I still have very good friends. In fact, I'm coming to I'm going to be up in your neck of the woods in August. We're having kind of a friends reunion
Oh,
in up in your area. I think we're going to be in Charlevoix.
okay.
So I mean, I still keep in touch with a lot of my friends. I mean, Michigan. To me, I've lived in, I think this is my 10th state that I've lived in. I've been to all the states. To me, Michigan is supremely underrated as far as natural beauty, outdoor. I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of people, they'll fly into Detroit and they'll see Detroit, and there's nothing against Detroit, but you go up to where you're from, or you go up to the northern half of the lower peninsula, and it's like, man, this place is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so growing up in Michigan, I went to Michigan State. I have a wildlife biology degree from Michigan State. So I spent the first 23 or 24 years of my life in Michigan. So it's definitely near and dear. My mom still lives there. I've got two of my brothers still live there. So I try to make it back once a year. Didn't make it back last year from COVID. I made it back the previous 2 years because I was running from hurricanes. So when we evacuated from two hurricanes, I went to Michigan. So
Man.
we have to do that sometimes. But yeah, so I grew up in very rural Michigan. Thankful. I think it's easier to go from rural to a little bit more. I lived in San Diego, which is a huge city. I
Yeah.
think it's easier to do that than going the opposite. And now where I live, so I live about half an hour north of Wilmington, North Carolina, and this area reminds me, other than being on the water, it reminds me very much of where I grew up. It's a very small town, you know, couple elementary schools, a couple middle schools, one high school. So it's definitely a smaller community. And that's where I wanted my kids to grow up. That's why we ended up back here.
Nice.
It's a very, very great place to raise. Eastern North Carolina is a very spectacular place. I didn't really know about it. Came to the Carolina Cup a couple times, and then when my wife's parents retired here, and we ended up here doing a little bit of investigation, and we ended up moving here. And very thankful. This place is amazing. Very underrated.
That's
But Michigan's a close second.
Well, and that was the next thing I was going to ask you was Michigan or Michigan State. But you kind of gave it away.
Listen, it was when I was growing up, it was, if you didn't fit in anywhere else, you went to Michigan, and if you couldn't get in anywhere else, you went to Michigan State. So I couldn't get in anywhere else, so I went to Michigan State. So
Well, they both have they're both pretty great schools, and they
no,
both
it was good. I mean,
great
I went there from, it was the best 7 years of my life to get my bachelor degree. I was there, so we had won national championship in basketball. So I was there in 2000. What else was I there for? I was there for the riots. For those that remember Michigan State, when we were on CNN and all those fun places, we had riots there in like '96. That was pretty interesting. It was, Michigan State was a little bit different than what it is today. It was a little bit more rough around the edges. Some of the stuff that happened then could never happen now. But I grew up, it's funny, I grew up a Michigan fan until I was probably 10. And then I started going to, my neighbor had Michigan State ice hockey tickets. So I would go watch the men's ice hockey team. And that's when I fell in love with Michigan State and ended up going there. So yeah, I'm a Spartan. Sorry, Wolverine.
Sparty Green.
Yeah. My brothers, all three of my brothers are Wolverine fans. So
my husband is too. I'm an Illini fan, University of Illinois. So
my good buddy went to U of I.
Yeah,
Where did you graduate?
I went to Illinois State.
So you went to Illinois State. Never mind.
I'm a Redbird.
No, where's Illinois State?
Illinois State's in Bloomington Normal. Illinois, Central Illinois.
I had two of my best buddies. One went to U of I, one went to Eastern. Eastern's another, I'll keep my mouth shut about Eastern. Two of my good buddies went to Eastern. Eastern was a fascinating school.
Fascinating.
Charleston, Illinois, I think is that right? It's in
Charleston.
The Panthers. Home of Tony Romo.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Tony Romo went there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, anyways, that's my connection to Illinois.
All these fun facts. Well, Brody, thank you so much. Again, if you guys want to visit PaddleFit, it is paddlefitpro.com, right?
Yep.
Didn't mess it up? Okay.
No, you got it. Yep. And then all of our social media tags are, we're PaddleFit. I think we have most of the PaddleFit Pro is our website, but if you search PaddleFit on Facebook, Instagram, all the fun stuff, you can find us.
My PaddleFit is one of the hashtags, right?
Yeah, we use my PaddleFit because we want people to tell their own story. So that's our main hashtag is my PaddleFit. We have clients and coaches using that hashtag. So we always want to hear what people's paddling stories are, and it's fun to see people's journeys.
Yes, for sure. Well, Brody, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, really thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun. Let me know when you want me to come back, and we'll talk about, way more controversial stuff that
I'll try to get those riveting questions prepared for next time.
Let's see if we can get canceled. Let's go down. Let's see if we can get canceled. No, see, that's my joking side, which gets me in trouble. You can cut off that interview before I say that, so I don't get in trouble.
Oh my gosh! I know.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much, Brody. I really appreciate it. Take care.
Okay, thank you.